My boyfriend and I are in a long-distance relationship. He's strikingly handsome, while I'm pretty ordinary and a bit chubby. People talk, but we video call every day, doing silly, boring things that we never get tired of. To surprise him, I saved enough money to buy a ticket to the UK. That night, I waited outside his apartment until midnight. Then, I saw him come back with another girl who was beautiful and cheerful. When he saw me, his smile froze. He hurriedly let go of the girl's hand. "It's not what you think. You're here already? Why didn't you call me? It's not as safe here as back home." Nick walked over, taking off his jacket and draping it over my shoulders. He held my freezing hands. I held back my emotions and pulled my hand away. I did call. But someone else picked up. Nick looked puzzled. The girl beside him spoke up, "My bad, Nick. You were talking about that project, and you left your phone on the table." I picked it up and told her to call back later. I didn't expect the battery to die after that. She was so pretty, the kind of girl who catches your eye instantly. It was my first time seeing someone so beautiful in real life. Standing next to Nick, they looked perfect for each other. The girl came over and buttoned up my coat. "Don't blame Nick. It was my fault. You didn't get hurt, did you?" I shook my head. "No." She glanced at Nick, her tone familiar and natural. "If you're upset, you gotta tell me. Nick won't let me off easy." Nick laughed. "Who would dare mess with you? With all those guys chasing you, they'd kill me. Oh, and I haven't introduced you yet. This is my girlfriend, Joanna. This is Maria, my friend." Maria, what a nice name, just like her bright and breezy demeanor. As Maria went upstairs with Nick, I finally asked him, "You two live together?" Maria replied playfully, "Yes." Nick chuckled helplessly, though he had a hint of a smile in his eyes. "Yeah, her old apartment got a few male tenants, and it wasn't safe for her alone. So, I asked her to stay here. There's an extra room in this building." Maria teased him, confident, "Aren't you? Who says you're safer than those guys? Men are all dangerous, right, Joanna?" I stayed silent. Nick took me to his room. The setup was still the same as the one we'd picked out together during video calls. Nick pulled out a blanket and an extra pillow. "You came alone? You didn't have to come. I'd have come to you once I'm done with this. Besides, I'm just here for a year, and it's almost over." He still thought of me as that bookish bumpkin who had never set foot on a plane or even traveled solo before flying abroad. I came at a bad time. I didn't demand to know why he was holding Maria's hand earlier. I drained all my emotions during the 7 hours I waited for him. The detailed plans in my notebook seemed like a joke. When I saw Nick and Maria walking toward me, smiling, I felt numb. In hindsight, it was all there. Last month, after Nick mentioned joining a project, our routine changed. We used to video call daily, sharing every tiny detail of our lives, but then, he started making excuses to avoid calls, saying he was too busy. The time difference got worse. Even though Nick had never been into academic projects, now he was all in. Despite feeling his increasing indifference, I convinced myself that he was genuinely busy. Since he was busy, I decided to visit him. "You know that's not what I mean." Nick buried his head in my neck just like he used to, breathing softly. "I've been so drained by this project lately. I didn't mean to ignore you and make you feel neglected." I excused myself to take a shower, avoiding his touch. Afterward, I turned off the lights. Nick wrapped his arms around my waist, his voice low, "Joanna, I missed you." "Nick, it's my time of the month." He paused, then pulled back, seeming bummed out. His phone's screen lit up. Someone had messaged him. He turned on the light, walked to his desk, and opened his laptop. "You get some sleep. I need to work on this project." I watched him open the file without making any changes, taking several pictures. Instead, he checked his phone a dozen times in a minute, a constant smile on his lips. After half an hour, it seemed like he remembered I was there, turning to apologize. "Sorry, Joanna. There's a part of the project that needs fixing. Lately, I've been swamped with project stuff. You wouldn't understand. By the way, don't be fooled by Maria's gentle appearance. She's fierce during debates and has flawless English. We guys all look up to her. As he spoke, there was a certain pride in his voice. Nick, do you know her well? I asked in a casual tone, but Nick's sudden anger caught me off guard. Joanna, please stop being upset. I'm exhausted here too. You've come all this way. I don't want us to fight. Nick had been the school heartthrob since middle school. Tons of girls chased him, stuffing his desk with love letters. He wasn't academically inclined, but he excelled in everything else: gaming, basketball. He was outgoing and sunny since middle school. Because of my close relationship with Nick, people often talked about us. The more he shone, the more ordinary I seemed. But he never cared about what others thought. Every day, he would go to and from school with me, without a hint of embarrassment. On weekends, we'd hang out together. If I was feeling down, he'd buy me gifts to cheer me up. When we got to high school and I decided to distance myself from him, he panicked. He started explaining to whoever confessed to him, "I've got a girl I like already. Joanna." That was the first time I heard him say he liked me. He listed all my good traits: good personality, good grades, and a nice singing voice. Then he asked if I wanted to be with him. I agreed because I liked him too. But the nasty comments didn't stop when I started dating Nick. It seemed like looks mattered more than grades or character at that age. Attractive people just had it easier. Our photos got posted online, with tons of negative comments. They said I looked plain, had a bad figure, and was embarrassing. Nick some even photoshopped my face with the school's pretty girl, saying, "Now this looks better." Every time he saw those comments, Nick got angrier than I did. He confronted them, saying they weren't worth my smallest flaw and that I was the most beautiful to him. Knowing I felt inferior, he praised me daily and bought me lots of pretty flowers. I put in time learning to dress better and do makeup. But it didn't help much, and my grades slipped. Nick wiped off my eyeliner and lipstick. "Joanna, I love you. You don't need to change yourself." We endured the pressure together and stayed together for 3 years. After graduation, his family sent him abroad. I achieved my goal of getting into a top domestic university. The day he left, I cried my heart out. He patiently comforted me, saying, "You're so amazing, should be the one worried about losing you." We promised to video call every day and keep in touch often. He assured me it was just for a year, and he'd return and come find me to make me feel secure. He introduced me to his family, establishing our relationship. I thought these double reassurances would get us through the year of long distance. But I underestimated the time difference, the distance, and overestimated our love. As Nick was closing his laptop, a sudden crash of broken glass came from next door. He rushed out, and I called after him, trying to sound normal. "It's late, where are you going?" "Maria's place seems to have an issue, I'll check it out." The ridiculous part was Maria didn't even call him, and yet he rushed over. Nick was gone for 2 hours, his phone left behind. The screen lit up when I accidentally touched it. The wallpaper was a picture of Maria. She was smiling at the camera, with a colorful theme park background. I recognized it. Nick had once posted about being at that theme park. He said it was their reunion spot. I was surprised because Nick never liked theme parks, even though he promised he'd take me someday. I thought I was special, but apparently, I wasn't. Another girl had broken down all his boundaries. Feeling something pulling at my emotions, I entered his lock screen password. It hadn't changed, still the date of our relationship. I opened his social media app. Maria was pinned at the top. Scrolling through their chats, they'd shared everything: meals, funny encounters, classmates, small gifts, ordering takeout, and invitations to hang out. Turns out, the urge to share doesn't disappear, it just shifts from one person to another. Every time Nick told me he was busy or tired, he was actually spending time with Maria. His feed also had many photos I hadn't seen before. One comment stood out: "Nick, when will you and Maria make it official? Closing his phone in disinterest, I wondered where I should go. After coming all this way, what next? It was another hour before Nick returned at 3 a.m. Full of guilt, he apologized. Sorry Joanna, I should have stayed with you. Maria had an issue, you know, being abroad, we need to support each other. You understand, right? I turned away. What happened to her? Not a big deal, just broke a hot water bottle and got slightly burned. Something not a big deal kept him for 3 hours. Sensing my mood, Nick got slightly impatient. Joanna, you don't need to be so hostile towards Maria. She's a good girl, you two could be great friends. He looked at me hopefully, genuinely believing we could be friends. Every mention of Maria was filled with admiration and concern. I was tired. Arguing seemed pointless. After a 10-hour flight and 7 hours of waiting, I was too exhausted to feel. The next morning, Nick told me he was free to take me out. I remembered him mentioning fun places in England during our video calls. Joanna, it's great you came. I took leave from my professor and project team. Today is for my girlfriend. He excitedly pulled me out of bed. I didn't tell him I had already booked a return flight for the morning. Nick insisted on taking me around to make up for last night. I agreed. We picked places mostly in shopping districts. He chose high-end, luxury stores. He seemed more interested than I was. I never shopped at those places. Though he came out with me, he kept looking at his phone. Seeing me stand there, he tried to compensate. These are famous brands here. See if there's anything you like. I'll get it for you. I asked, since when did you care about these things? He used to know nothing about girls' accessories or makeup, let alone pick such places for dates. Maria told me that girls generally like these things. I thought about it and realized you don't really have any decent jewelry. As he spoke, I watched him put down his phone and select a necklace before heading to pay for it. Curiously, I asked him, what are you doing? Nick habitually replied, Maria's birthday is coming up. She mentioned she's liked this for a long time. I bought it as a gift because I didn't want to think too much about it. I smiled. Well, now that you've bought it, can we go? Nick became slightly tense. Joanna, I honestly came out with you. Choose one, let me get it for you. I randomly picked one from the counter. This one then. Nick glanced at it and hesitated. Joanna, can you choose another? This one is for Maria. I raised my eyebrows. Why can't we wear the same necklace? Nick sounded exasperated. Can you not make a scene? I don't mean it like that. Wearing the same necklace might make people compare you. You don't want that, do you? The implication was clear. If I wore the same necklace, she would look good, and I would be imitating her. I stayed silent. Once, due to low self-esteem, I would barely eat, wear a mask and cap outside, and only dress in loose clothes due to my poor figure. Nick felt sorry for me and kept encouraging me, saying I deserved the best things in the world. We endured so many hurtful comments to be together. Even a simple photo would become a tool for people to attack me. Nick was the one who built up my confidence little by little. He said looks were just a shell, that no one saw my inner qualities, so their opinion didn't matter. He said he'd been with me so long that he loved me, found me beautiful. Nick knew what words could break me the most. I had gotten used to the harsh words from outsiders. But these words from Nick's mouth stung the most. He knew how much pain I had endured. I fought back my tears. Regretfully, Nick rubbed his head and still bought me that necklace. Joanna, that wasn't my intent. He helped me put on the necklace. Right then, Maria walked into the store with a handsome guy, almost as attractive as Nick. Nick visibly tensed. When Maria saw my necklace, she couldn't hold back her tears, which streamed down her pretty face. The boy beside her became anxious and hurriedly tried to comfort her. And I quietly watched Nick's reaction. He clenched his fists. 1 second, 2 seconds. Finally, he chased after Maria without hesitation. As she turned to leave, I calmly removed the necklace and asked the shop assistant, "Can I return this?" The assistant, a young girl, bit her lip and thought for a while. You can return it, but honestly, it looks great on you. You deserve nice things just like any other girl. A stranger's kindness can break through one's defenses. Thanks, but please help me return it. With the money in hand, I had nowhere to go in this unfamiliar place. Nick's phone was busy when I tried calling. I still had my luggage in his apartment. So I went back, but without the key, I had to sit on the steps outside, waiting for a long time. My phone's battery was down to 10% when Nick suddenly called. It was noisy around him, like he was in a bar. Sorry, Joanna, can you look around by yourself a bit longer? I can't leave right now. I still have my luggage at your place. My phone's about to die. Nick thought for a moment. Alright, Joanna, I'll send you an address to come get the key. I followed the address to a nearby bar. After mentioning Nick's name, someone led me to a booth. The room was filled with smoke and the smell of alcohol. I spotted Nick and asked him for the key. A guy beside him eyed me and asked Nick, "Is she your relative?" Nick averted his gaze, hesitating before saying, "She's my girlfriend." That look, the same malicious scrutiny from Nick's friends, resurfaced. You actually like someone like her? Others chimed in, yeah, I thought you and Maria were a thing. Nick hung his head and gave a bitter laugh. Maria's so good, a lot of guys are after her, not just me. We can all see Maria likes you. Only you are clueless. If you dare hurt Maria, I'll be the first to go after you. I cut through their chatter. We're breaking up. He can go after Maria now. Grabbing the key from the table, I left without turning back. Behind me, I heard multiple congratulations. Finally broke up with that ugly girl. We've been waiting for you to get with Maria. I ignored their words, feeling numb inside. I packed my things in the apartment, ready to leave, when my advisor called. Joanna, I saw you took leave to go to the UK. Are you still there? Yes, Professor. I have a flight back later today. Cancel your ticket and stay a bit longer. We have a project with Leeds University and need someone to go. All expenses will be covered. I paused for a moment. Leeds University? That's where Nick and Maria go to school. My advisor looked confused. Is there a problem? No, I replied quickly. By the way, you have a senior who's working in the UK. If you run into any trouble over there, just reach out to him. I've already informed him, and he'll look after you. Soon, I got a new verification message. Hi, I'm Jackson. After adding him as a friend, Jackson got a sense of my situation and arranged a place for me to stay. This place is close to the school and relatively safe. You can stay here for the next couple of days, he messaged. I was about to thank him when he sent another message. Sorry, I didn't consider everything I heard from the professor that you've never been abroad and that you're here alone. Send me your address, I'll come pick you up. I replied, okay. I waited with my luggage in front of the apartment for my senior to arrive. Just then, Nick rushed back, looking flustered. Without any explanation, he began to question me. What do you mean by this? Why are you throwing a tantrum? I pushed him away and looked into the distance. Exactly what I said. Breaking up for no reason. You came all the way here from home because you're so deeply in love with me, right? So why are you throwing a fit now? I've already told everyone you're my girlfriend. Clenching my fists, I only felt the cold wind growing colder. I let out a sarcastic laugh, feeling a chill inside. Admitting I'm your girlfriend, is that supposed to be something to be proud of? Nick, caught off guard, had nothing to say. Nick, I'm tired. I'm really tired of being in this relationship. Nick finally spoke his mind. Fine, we can break up, but you have to tell my parents yourself. Nick's parents knew about us and were more eager than Nick for us to stay together. No thanks, I rejected. You have a beautiful new girlfriend, they'll be happy. Nick frowned. My parents don't like me dating pretty girls. I forced a smile and kept quiet. Maybe realizing I was serious about breaking up, he asked again, you really want to break up? Think it through. People these days only care about appearances. Who else would love you like I do? I looked at him, feeling he was a stranger. Nick, can you remember why you liked me in the first place? Nick paused but said nothing. Fine, it's normal to forget. If you remembered, we wouldn't be breaking up. We'd been together so long that our early memories were fading away. So was the value of our relationship. I saw a car approaching. On the other side, Maria came running, out of breath. Nick, I saw you left without eating. I was worried and came to check on you. I glanced at her. You two really are like conjoined twins. With tears in her eyes, Maria suddenly bowed to me. If it's because of me that you're breaking up, I apologize. But please don't do this to Nick. It hurts him too. Every word was for Nick. It made me look like the bad guy. Nick, of course, couldn't bear it and quickly protected her. You did nothing wrong. We've never done anything inappropriate. Nick, I've been thinking. Did Joanna look through your phone before? Nick glared coldly at me, finally realizing. Yes, I did look through it. It was quite revealing. Joanna, why did you look through my phone without my permission? And since you saw everything, you know Maria and I are innocent. She's really conscious of her reputation. Why make it sound worse? What did I say? I raised my voice, all my emotions bursting out. Since you came back holding her hand, what did I say? It was just his instinct to side with and protect her, assuming the worst about Meso. It all started back then. Joanna, if you're envious of Maria, that's your problem. A Mercedes screeched to a halt in front of us, the horn blaring for 5 seconds. Nick shielded Maria's ears, angrily ready to confront the driver. To our surprise, the man stepped out, adjusting his suit. Maria instinctively fixed her hair upon seeing him. Furrowing my brow, I looked closely. He walked past Maria, came to me, and bowed slightly. Joanna, right? I'm Jackson. I nodded. Hello. Jackson naturally took my suitcase. Let's go, get in the car. The car sped away. Remembering Maria's pitiful look, I suddenly felt relieved. Jackson glanced at the rearview mirror and shook his head. They spoke to you like that, and you still talked nicely to them. Maybe I'm just born to take it, I said. It's hard to change deeply rooted insecurities. Girl, you need to learn a few curse words. You can't always be so nice, Jackson remarked, then reconsidered. Never mind, never mind. The professor told me not to lead you astray. Just be yourself, you're doing fine. Your advisor should have sent you the materials already. Prepare well in the next couple of days. You'll be presenting at Leeds University, where a few project teams are researching similar areas. They'd like you to listen to their reports and give some advice. Me? I asked, surprised. Jackson patted my head. Relax. I've reviewed their project overviews. They have a lot of issues. Just pick a few to talk about. In the following days, I focused on preparing my presentation. Suddenly, Nick's parents called. Somehow, they learned about our breakup. Joanna, are you and Nick having issues? He can be thoughtless sometimes. Can you overlook it for his sake? I calmly replied, Uncle, Auntie, Nick and I have broken up. We're both adults, and we made this decision after careful consideration. We, as parents, understand Nick. We know he likes you. You've kept up a long-distance relationship for so long. You went abroad for him because you still care about him, right? I used to like him, but not anymore. Uncle, Auntie, please don't persuade me any further. I hung up the phone. Shortly after, another unfamiliar number called. I thought about it for a moment and answered. Joanna, what did you tell my parents? You're the one who wants to break up. Why do you have to drag Maria into this? Without a second thought, I hung up and blocked the number. Once I finished my report, I could return home and completely close this chapter. The day before presenting at Leeds University, Jackson sent over a few student project proposals from the university. One of them was from Nick and Maria's team. I looked at it carefully and couldn't help but laugh. So, this is the project proposal Nick had been busy with for so long. The presentation hall was packed. I followed the Leeds University supervisor backstage to set up my PPT. Backstage, I saw Nick and Maria again. They were standing together, waiting to copy their team's PPT. When he saw me, Nick instinctively let go of Maria's hand and looked at me as if he wanted to say something. I bypassed him and copied my PPT onto the computer. Meanwhile, Maria seemed very upset with him. They even started arguing over something as simple as copying a PPT. Feeling irritated, I went out into the hallway to get some fresh air while others tried to mediate their quarrel. Jackson came by, glanced backstage, and smiled. Feeling the pressure? I frowned, thinking about their project proposal. How did they convince the professors to approve their project? Jackson shrugged. I don't know. The presentation began. I went on stage and introduced myself briefly. Maria, sitting in the front row, frowned as soon as she saw me. That look, I've faced it for years. It's a look filled with prejudice. Joanna? The teacher next to Maria asked, do you know her? This girl is very capable and her mentor is a senior professor in this field. If you want to delve deeper into this area, you should learn from her. Another guy in Nick's team sullenly said, she's his ex-girlfriend. The teacher was somewhat startled. Such an excellent ex-girlfriend. Did she dump you? No, he dumped her. What a shame. Nick looked at me with a complex expression, his gaze never leaving me. I pretended not to notice and methodically presented the latest findings from our team. Thunderous applause followed. I've heard a lot about Professor Chen's outstanding student. Seeing her today, she indeed lives up to her reputation. Looks like we have a successor. Amidst the accolades, I stepped off the stage and sat in the judge's seat. Next up was Nick's team presentation. Surprisingly, all three of them seemed off. Their presentation was riddled with mistakes, and their PPT was full of loopholes, like it was put together at the last minute. I frowned and listened to the whole thing. Maria stood on stage, lips pressed together, saying nothing. The audience was abuzz with criticism. She's so pretty but can't even make a decent PPT. Must be spending all her time on romance. The microphone was passed to me. I critically commented, the work is insufficient. I think, before seeking more constructive feedback, you should first ensure your team takes care of the basics. Not to mention content, you didn't even pay enough attention to elementary things like layout, let alone the details of the content. Maria, usually so proud, now stood on stage with her head down, her face flushed with embarrassment. Jackson came over and whispered, I just found out that this girl was caught two-timing, and both guys were in the same team. The study abroad community isn't that big. Rumors travel fast. She supposedly hooked up with two key team members just to get first authorship on this project. Your ex probably got played, too. Thinking about it, the man I saw with her in the business circle last time was likely Maria's boyfriend. Her other boyfriend must be having a hard time, given rumors also linked her with a British professor at Leeds. She might think being pretty is her asset to manipulate many men. Jackson kept rambling beside me, I don't see the appeal. There are plenty of girls prettier than her out there. You're noisy. I interrupted him, I said you're being noisy. Getting bold, I see, pointing fingers at me. After the presentation, I politely declined the Leeds University teacher's invitation for dinner. I needed to hurry home. Nick came running out, his hair disheveled by the wind. Joanna, wait. I've called you so many times, and you never answered. I asked aloofly, what do you want? He paused, taking a moment to process my tone. Are you still mad? I shook my head. Nick seemed to grasp at any glimmer of hope and said excitedly, Joanna, I never got together with Maria. So what? I continued. His voice turned pleading, can we go back to how things were? No. Seeing Jackson next to me, Nick sneered suddenly, of course. You already have another man by your side. Looks like you came here for another man, pretending to care about me. All of that was fake. Oh, right. Joanna's been on her period these days. Has it been holding you back? Without hesitation, I slapped him across the face. In a stern voice, I said, "Wipe your mouth clean before you speak." After that day, the legitimate wife of the teacher Maria had been fooling around with came to the school. She confronted them in front of all the teachers and students, displaying evidence. Each piece showing their improper behavior. Maria knelt and begged the wife to spare her, pleaded with Nick, begged her ex-boyfriend, and the teacher. No one could save her. Maria's actions at school were publicly reprimanded, and she was eventually expelled amidst the jeers and hatred from everyone. At the same time, Nick's project was cancelled by the school. An endless stream of insults fell upon them. The extent people used to envy them when they were together was now matched by how much people despised them. Nick chose to drop out and return home amid all the harsh words. On the day he left, he came to see me once again. He looked exhausted, no longer the bright, handsome guy from back then. "Joanna, didn't you want me to recall why I liked you?" "I've never forgotten. I remember back then, you always helped me, spoke well of me in front of my parents and teachers. It was you who gradually moved me, Joanna. I always remembered your kindness. Liking someone back then, it was so pure." At that time, he was rebellious, and his family was going through tough times. He often violated school rules and was punished. I intervened to prevent him from being abandoned, pleading with teachers and his parents, saying he was actually very capable. Back then, all the parents and teachers liked obedient, well-behaved kids like me, so they relented a bit because of me and forgave Nick. But they also warned me to stay away from troublemakers like him. It was the first time I didn't heed my teachers' and parents' advice. I stood firmly by his side. Seeing that I could handle troublesome teachers, he got used to being with me. We stayed together through high school. I got in on my own merit, he got in through connections. The closer I got to Nick, the more trouble he brought me. But at that time, because I liked him, I wasn't afraid of trouble. I had the courage to stand up to the negative remarks. But now, I seem to really not like him anymore. Even those memories with him don't matter to me. After hearing his speech, I just nodded at him. Let's not see each other anymore. We probably won't ever meet again. Jackson saw everything from upstairs and couldn't help but remark, "He sees your excellence and wants to win you back." Thinking of the past, I asked him, "Do good-looking people naturally have to try less than others?" Everyone has their own strengths. Some are good-looking, some have strong learning abilities, but the further you go, the more you'll find that ability matters more than appearance. People's energy and time are limited. Rather than figuring out how to get prettier, studying your professional project suits you more and has higher returns. Later, I really overcame my inferiority complex. Not through others' sweet words, but through gaining respect bit by bit with my progress. After that, no one used appearance to attack me. When people mentioned me, they mostly said, solid professional knowledge, strong learning ability, excellent skills, outstanding. I looked into the distance and slowly smiled. I deserve better people. I deserve a better future.